You're listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Camuno here, and we are back with episode 57 of the Money Monopolizers podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I ain't got too much going on this week. I think I've pretty much been chilling. I think I've been doing a lot of stuff with the website and all that recently. Got some announcements coming up early, probably next week, so I'm gonna save that one. But as far as I guess I could keep everybody updated with my journey of buying my house back in Houston. Offered on another property that was listed at $299. And it's been on the market for like 28 days, and I said I'm gonna offer it $250 because that's where my numbers will work. It's actually way overpriced for the square footage of it. They're trying to add the back house as the additional square footage to justify the list price, but in reality, it shouldn't be listed that high. So I offered $250. They said that, oh no, we're not going to entertain it. No counter offer. I'm not offering $299, so it doesn't work for me. I'll keep looking, but that's my weekly update. How everything going for you, bro?
I'm doing good, man. Shout out to everyone that bought the course so far, the How to Acquire Your First Flip or Rental Property course. There was definitely, a ton of people bought it, so shout out to y'all. It's still, the pre-sale is over. Course released Friday on the 25th, but today is the 27th, so it released 2 days ago. It's been people are really liking it so far, so I'm getting some good feedback on it, adding some updates to it. Definitely still trying to add as much value. So, you can definitely go still get it. Link in the bio. It's now, it's down on pre-sale. So when you get it, you immediately get it. You won't have to wait. Everybody else that bought it had to wait a little bit, but you get it immediately now. Like I said, it comes with nearly 10 hours of content. So, just teaching you kind of how to acquire that first deal. If you want to flip or if you want to hold, hours and hours of content and video footage and just things that kind of guide you and give you that right information. So, it's definitely been good. But yeah, other than that, man, just been really, trying to build these streams of income, man. That's really what I've been doing I think Q4 2020, trying to get this next real estate deal. I'm interviewing another driver next week. Hopefully, I think this guy could be solid. I'm actually going to meet with him. So hopefully, we could get him in the truck and, get the truck back up and rolling. That's been a headache for the past couple months, but once that's good, then we'll be there. But like I said, I have my goal to hit 6 to 7 streams of income by the end of the year, and it's definitely on pace for that. So, so far so good, man. I can't complain. Just out here hustling and working. It's life is good though. I can't complain. But anyways, I don't want the intro to go too long. We had a great episode for y'all this week. We talked to Jerome Myers. He is a large multifamily real estate investor, and he is doing a ton of stuff now in regards to his business. He's doing a lot of I'll just say he owns, I think he said 93 units as of September of 2020. So he's definitely been making moves. He started investing not too long ago. I think he said November 2017. So it's been about 2 years, and he's already, accumulated almost 100 units. And he said his goal is 1,000 units by 2028. So it's crazy that's even 1,000 rental units. That's insane. But man, this is what people are out here doing. And so, him coming on our show is definitely an honor. Him reaching out to be on the show and just being able to talk to him and get his story. It was super insightful, and he's a great storyteller, man. This was a great story. I really enjoyed this episode, just the way it unfolded, and kind of the value that he gave and the strategy that he gave. This dude is a very smart dude, very, very smart dude. He mentioned how he graduated as a civil engineer, which is also what I did, and he said he graduated with 3.9 GPA.
Yep.
not that necessarily, in regards to real estate investing, you don't need, 3.9 GPA and as an engineer, but that just kind of tells you, the level of intellect that this dude has. So I was definitely, related a lot to his story because of, we did have that similar background in regards to being civil engineers and all that, and kind of talked about that throughout the podcast a little bit too. So definitely a great episode. One of my, favorite episodes, definitely in terms of the value that was provided and just being able to, gain him as a connection and being able to have this guy in my Rolodex. It's I'm happy about that too. So yeah, but what did you think of it?
No, this is definitely one of the better guests that we've had on the show. Primarily because we like his mindset for one. But what I learned from him is that he's really disciplined though, and that allowed him to be able to amass this real estate portfolio that he has now. And now what he talks about is how he's doubling it every year. So that like he's even though he has 93 units right now, he's trying to double that by 2021, and then just so on and so forth until he reaches his goal. So definitely like that aspect of him. I think that's a great connection for us to even have in general. I also want to point out that you mentioned he reached out to us. I want to extend that invitation to anybody else who's who may have like a compelling story that they want to share with us. Like literally, if you go to moneymonopolizers.com, I think on our contact page, you can reach out to us and tell us why you think that you'll be a good fit to be on the show. And we can definitely try to set something up for y'all. So it was a great opportunity to get to interview him. And I think that's a valuable connection for both of us. So it was good overall though.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. Hey, Jerome, how you doing today?
Amazing. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh yeah, man. I'm super excited to get into your story. Like I was saying, we were talking a little bit before we started, but you reached out and we kind of mentioned how you found us, and I was like, man, the fact that someone that is doing something that I want to be doing is reaching out to be on our podcast and kind of be exposed to our audience is super exciting because like I said before, I want to be able to learn from you, and that's definitely what I'm looking forward to throughout this episode because you're doing exactly what I'm trying to be doing in the very near future. So super excited to have you on and get into your story today.
Excited to be with you guys. Grateful for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. So, but yeah, we'll hop right into it. Typically how we start is we usually want to, we want to see like how our guests kind of grew up and their upbringing and, because it helps our audience be able to resonate with their story a lot more and see how impactful it could be, showing like they came from either a similar situation or they probably even came from a worse situation and look where they are now. So, that being said, you mind like getting into your background in regards to like your upbringing with money when you were growing up, what you did when you were, let's say, 18 years old, you graduated, how did your life look, and then kind of what you're doing now. So kind of that whole transition from beginning to now.
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to simplify it is I'm the son of a stay-at-home mom and a soldier, right? My parents decided that the best investment that my mom could make with her time was spending time with me. And so my dad was a non-commissioned officer in the Army. And the crazy story about them, just real quick to bring everything full circle, they grew up really poor. Like my grandma on my mom's side was a sharecropper. And my dad grew up with his grandparents and then moved with his parents when he was like 13 or 14 to New York City, was there for a minute, like 3 years. Then he graduated from high school and went in the Marines just because he didn't want to be in the city anymore, right? So two young people didn't go get any formal education after they graduated from high school, met in Alaska, right, of all places, and connected that way. Then eventually they got married, and 30 some years later, maybe even 40 years later at this point, they made it all work, just kind of step by step, just putting it together and making it happen. My story was a lot different. So, when I was a kid, probably 4 or 5, I told my mom, like, I want to be a garbage man. Right. And she kind of looked at me as only a mom could do. She's like, baby, that's not going to support the lifestyle that you want to live. And I said, I know. But Lonnie pulls up on the back of the truck. He's hanging, right? He's hanging off the back of the truck. He jumps off. He grabs it, throws it in, pulls the lever. And come on, man. Y'all act like y'all ain't pulled a lever before. You pull the lever, man, and smashes the trash, throws the trash can. He's back on the back of the truck. And he's home around the same time all the kids get out of school, right? So he's working early. He's back home about 3 o'clock. My dad worked the Carolina half day, and I know y'all not from North Carolina, so you might not know what that is. The Carolina half day is you pick the 12 hours a day you're going to work. So my dad was at work before 6. He came back home after 6 every single day. And so what I learned from that is the value of hard work, the value of putting the time in and make sure that you produce the result. And I was like, man, that's amazing. But I also like this other thing, right? Where he's home early. He's able to greet his kids off the bus. He's got the freedom of being outside and he's working with big equipment. So I was like, man, that's so cool. I want to do that. Long story short, my mom said, look, you've got to get a job that's going to afford the lifestyle that you want to live. And it was great advice. But today I make one tweak on that. You got to have income streams that afford you the lifestyle that you want to live. Right. And so I ran with that. I ran with that narrative of you got to get a job that's going to pay you. And so fast forward to senior year in high school, I go to my physics teacher. I say, Mr. Ayers, I want to either be an engineer or a psychologist. He said, well, from a financial standpoint, the engineer's going to make a whole lot more money than a psychologist, but they're both solving problems. And Jerome, I think you'd be good at either one of them. And so, of course, what I do, I want to be an engineer, right? So I went to A&T, played football there for 4 years, graduated with like a 3.9 GPA, and got to do some really cool stuff while I was there. The one thing I'll, do a pit stop on is I got an internship overseas in Eritrea or Eritrea, depending on who you talk to. We were building a communications building for the American embassy there. All right, so I got that experience with construction. I was like, oh, man, this is cool. The whole reason why I picked civil engineering was because I wanted to see things built, and I didn't really understand where I was going or what I was going to do, but that was kind of the idea behind all of it. And I'll be completely honest with you guys, and this just shows you how little I actually knew. When I was a senior in high school, I didn't even know what an engineer was. It was because I had a little internship thing where I was like a job shadowing type situation where I was like, oh, so the engineer is a person who designs all this stuff. And that's why they get compensated the way they do. The only engineer I knew of was the person that drove the train, right? So back to big equipment and things making noise. So, I go to A&T, I graduate, and then I got 2 decision points. I could either go pursue my PhD at the University of South Florida, or I could start working. And I chose to start working because I was like, it's time to build wealth, right? So, and the cool thing at that juncture is because it was like 2005, I had a signing bonus for when I was starting that job, and I was able to close on my first home before I had my first day at my real job. And for me, that was like, okay, I'm doing the thing, right? So I had this house, I had acreage. I was like, yeah, I'm balling. And the reality of the situation, I wasn't, right? Like my mortgage was so high that it was like half my income, like half my take home. It's like the ratios aren't right. And as I've gotten older, I've realized how important those ratios are for you to be able to do everything. And I really got distracted, if I'm totally honest. I thought that I was going to be able to buy a personal residence and a rental property when I first came out of school. But instead, I got big eyes and I was like, oh, no, I'm going to just go ahead and get the nicer house, right, instead of trying to do both. And I think that in and of itself was probably one of the big financial mistakes I made early, just because, if you go read that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, I was going to tell you that house is not an asset, guys. It's a liability, right? And so I took my income and put it into a liability, as everybody in the middle class does, right? They want everybody to know they're doing well. And instead of putting it into an asset that was going to pay for that liability. And so, fast forward, I just go on the corporate career and I'm doing the thing. I'm on the fast track. I'm meeting with executives. I got mentors. And then 2009 happens and I'm in a job that I hate. I mean, literally, I hate. And there's no way out because the guy that was sponsoring me, his position got eliminated. And so I sit in that job for like 30 months trying to figure out how I'm going to get out and just go through a bunch of changes and start questioning all kinds of stuff. And for me, like 2010 is one of those situations where everything changed for me. And so May of 2010, I got my last haircut. And so it's been 10 years that I've been on this journey of just becoming this better person and truly beginning to understand the nature of human beings and what we're actually placed on this earth for. So I said a lot. I'll pause right there and let you guys do some unpacking. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm glad you gave us a chance to kind of unpack this because that was a lot. And that was a lot I really want to get into. First of all, I'll go in there more. You could kind of comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I really, love that you mentioned, that mindset about how the way you approached, just buying a house when you graduated, right? So you said that you went and bought the house that's half of your income, right? And a lot of people do that like as soon as they graduate, they want to, now they got the income, they got, free, I don't have to go to school, I don't have to do that now, I'm balling right now. So they go and that first house that most people end up buying usually is like the death of their dreams, in regards to finances, right? And this goes for even vehicles too. That first car, that first house that you get right when you graduate is going to be the death of your dreams if you buy it the wrong way, right? Because a lot of people go and they want to go buy the house that's if the bank says, hey, you're pre-approved for 450,000, they go in and buy the house that's 420. If you can get a car that's $40,000, they go and buy the car that's $40,000, and now literally from there you literally start on a cycle of just, you're never going to be able to escape that, right? So the fact, I'm really glad that you mentioned the mentality of, I always say, if the first house that everyone should be buying should be the asset, a duplex or, a triplex, something that they can house hack and, let their number one housing be paid for, and then they can move out and let that house pay for that asset. The house that they really want to buy in the future after you get a few more of them. So I'm really, glad that you really mentioned that one too. Marlon, you could, I know you want to comment, you could say something before I say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just going off of what Alex is saying, what you tend to see often in just in our American society is like what I call the debt trap. And that's pretty much, once you got out of college, you are literally stacking up all the expenses and liabilities that you can before you even get started good enough into your career. So you're looking at buying the house. Like I just use all the numbers Alex had. He said 450 for the house, 40,000 for the car, and I'm gonna also add in, you may have a few student loan. May have student loan debt, so that may be like another 70,000. That totals up to $560,000 in all types of forms of debt that you have accrued before you even got your feet wet into your career. So now you've already are on an uphill battle of trying to get out of debt, and you are pretty much setting yourself behind when it comes to trying to become financially independent or trying to build wealth, because you always have some type of expense that you have to continuously work hard in order to overcome. Because once all of your income, you said half your income is just going to housing alone, you still have a car, you still have food, you still have other lifestyle expenses that you are going to accrue. So you need to. So now your entire focus is just continuously go to work. You said you're working a job that you hated, but you really didn't have a way out at the time because you were that house was literally holding you hostage in a way. Yeah. It's like, hey, you got to pay this, got to pay me, bro. Like if you miss that month of payment trying to build a business, then hey, you're gonna be foreclosed on. So now that's why I said it's like a debt trap. Like you literally are trapped in this cycle of having to go to work, get the money in order to pay it off. So I guess I'm gonna let Alex continue on. I'm sure you had like a lead-in question from there.
Yeah, I mean, I want him to continue the story from that point too, so we can kind of get into it, because I don't want the episode to be 2 hours. But I know at that point too, like Marlon said, you kind of stuck in that job. It's 2010 at that point. Of course, we see what happens in the housing bubble in 2008, 2009, 2010. Things take a bottom. You mentioned, you talk about a rental property. Can you talk about kind of what happened at that point, 2010, and then moving forward in that regard?
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize this point. So I stopped getting haircuts. People started asking questions like, what's going on? What are you doing? You're going to sabotage. Because my goal was to run a division of that Fortune 500 company I was working for. And like, you can't do that doing what you're doing. I was like, what do you mean? Like, what difference does it make? Like, my skin's still going to be brown. My nose is still going to be broad, and my lips are still going to be full. So if the thought is, well, I'm less African or whatever you want to call it when I walk in the door because I have a nice clean cut, I just don't know if I buy it. And I think the question really became, well, do people know what to do with you? Do they know how to take you? Do you want to create a situation that's more challenging for yourself? And I just kind of looked at him and was like, well, if it's meant to be, it's going to be. At this point, I'm just going to do what feels authentic to me, right? Mm-hmm. And so fast forward, at the end of that, I doubled my income a few years later. Like, the situation was just kind of insane. I went from, driving my Camry to driving a GTR. It was adding on like more debt or adding on more obligations and building that lifestyle, but doing it the right way, right? So, I bought that before I actually started working, but I was aggressively saving. I was maxing out 401ks. Like I was doing all the things you were supposed to do. And that gave me permission to do some of the other stuff, right? And I think everybody emulates the back end because that's what they see. Nobody actually sees the work. And so when I was making my moves, I was continuously saying, hey, well, if you haven't maxed out your 401k, this probably doesn't make sense for you to spend your money that way. I'm doing it because of X, Y, and Z. And it gave me an opportunity to really educate folks on the journey and not just saying, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to get the flyest whip I can get, or I'm going to get the coolest house, or I need that extra trip and I need the VIP bump, or whatever it is, right? Like, we got to be producers and not consumers. And I think our community in general has just been consumers. And when you consume, make sure you're consuming something of value, right? And I think especially in like the financial literacy and a real estate game, there's some people out there who are peddling stuff that's not real, right? Just to get people who want to make generational wealth. They want to take advantage of them. And all they do is end up taking them backwards because they're not giving them real game, is what I would like to call it. And so, personally, I've taken a stand on that. And I call people out. When I see things that aren't real, they aren't making a promise that the person can actually fulfill on, I don't want people to give them that money. Because that money's better off just sitting in a bank account than it is being spent that way. And the other thing that it does when people go down that path is it makes them not trusting of people like you and us, right? If somebody does them wrong and then you guys show up and you got a legitimate opportunity to educate them or a legitimate opportunity for them to partner with you on the deal and they've been done wrong already, then you got to overcome that baggage. It's kind of like getting a girlfriend who's been in a poor relationship, right? You know all the stuff from the person that came before you can actually do the thing that you want to do. And you didn't even earn those struggles. And at the end of the day, for me, I think this is all about integrity. And I think within the culture particular, we got to protect each other, right? I think we got to be looking out for each other's best interests. There's enough people that are exploiting and taking advantage of our community. And I think it's super, super, super important that people like you protect your platform and only give it to people who are actually doing things the right way with a true intention of making a real impact on the community. So again, I'll get off my soapbox, but that's a key point for me because I think everybody's looking for hacks, right? They want to figure out the shortcut, but a shortcut always leads to a dead end. Eventually, you run into a place where you can't get out of that corner.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a few things that I like. So the first one was that you mentioned how you wanted to make sure, well, after like 2010, you had like some sort of mindset shift where you were saying, okay, I need to go earn my right to go buy the things that I want. So that's going to be by increasing income, by increasing my portfolio. It's not like you said you're investing in 401k, but one thing you said is that you doubled your income. And then I didn't want to gloss over that because I thought that was pretty important because about how you went about doing that. Was that through just your job? Was that through investing in the 401k? Was that through buying real estate? How did that start coming about?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing was just I changed jobs 3 times, right? And so what happens when you stay in a company, and not just jobs, but I changed companies. So when you stay at a company for a long time, there's this gap where you're and I call it kind of like this. It's like loss to lease, right? If people have a unit and it's rented by somebody and market rents are going up, you typically don't take them to market rent every year on a renewal. There's usually some form of a gap, right? When you stay at a company for a long time, rates may be going up for the new people they bring in, but they don't bump you up as much as the market's going up to get that new talent. And so sometimes you got to make that shift. You got to move to that next space so that you can maximize your benefit. But a few things happened. I finished my MBA. I got my engineering license. I'm a licensed civil engineer. I got my project management professional certification. And there may have been one other thing. I think I got my master black belt in Six Sigma. And so those 4 qualifications made me worthy of more income, right? Just from the W-2 standpoint. Outside of that, I was lending money. I was a hard money lender because I had disposable income at that point. And so I was getting the income from that as well. And I hadn't bought any more property at that point. Well, I take that back. In 2010, I did close on a bigger house, right? So that first home became a rental property, and then we got a bigger house at that point too. So that doubling of the income was probably between 2010 and 2015, where that big shift came. So, it was only like 5 years, but it was a major number change.
Yeah. And I really like that too a lot, because approaching it from that perspective, and that's really a unique way, especially when you talk about lending money. Because in a sense, because the fact you were maxing out your 401k, you were probably sitting on a good amount of cash that you had, the ability to lend. And that's a really interesting investment approach, because that's essentially, that's investing money as well. A lot of people think, oh, investing, I got to go buy real estate, I got to go buy stocks, I got to do that. Like, no, if you have cash, expendable cash in that regard, then you can make money just literally off of putting your money in a different bank account. So, being able to do that is, that's really commendable. So then at that point, then that was okay. So 2015, the real estate market started getting really hot at this point. So you had bought another house, you bought a bigger house, then you had the previous house become a rental property. When did you decide, like, because obviously now, what you're doing now, there was a shift at some point to where, it's like, okay, the W-2, that's not, I can't rock with that for the rest of my life. I'm gonna have to become a 100% producer, right? And just shift into that B quadrant or that I quadrant. When we look at the cash flow quadrant. So when did that transition happen, and what caused that? What was the catalyst of that?
Yeah.
So the last role, and I usually lead in with this, but for your listeners, I wanted to make them listen a little bit before we got there, right? And so, I was fortunate enough to be employee number 2 at a company that was taking overhead power lines and putting them underground on January 13th of 2015. By September, my team was up to 175 employees. By the end of the year, we did 20 million in revenue, and I made $6 million profit for the company, right? So 30% margins. My reward for that was on Christmas Eve, talking to the guy that just became my supervisor, and him saying, you're going to have to lay off about half that workforce. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah. I said, I just made $6 million. He's like, yeah, we're going to cut them. And he's like, you can do it or somebody else can do it, but we need to reduce the workforce. And so I spent Christmas Eve through New Year's figuring out who was going to have a job when we went back to work, right? And that was the first time I was an Axeman, and I had a problem with it. I was like, there's something wrong with this. I didn't really sleep. I didn't really eat for that time. And it was just like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm going to get through this because that's what leaders do, but I'm never going to do this again. Not from somebody who wasn't there with me. Like, I had 3 different bosses that year. I saw them once a month, maybe once every other month, and I talked to them once every other week. And that was, it was just me and the people on the ground building this thing from nothing. And so I promised myself I wouldn't do that. You fast forward to Thanksgiving of the following year, and we're doing the same thing. The day before we go away for Christmas break, it's like, hey, or not Christmas break, Thanksgiving break. Like, hey, don't spend a bunch of money on Black Friday. We're not sure what's going to happen. Okay. All right. And so, that was it. I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And so I dropped out, right? I was like, I'm just not going to be in this situation anymore. I can do better. And so what happened was I went back when I realized that's where we were going again. I went back to sophomore year in college. Me and my buddy Deron were sitting on the stoop and we're doing math. That's what engineering students do in their free time, right? Recounting the money, right?
For sure.
I was paying $395. I had 2 roommates paying $395. He had the same situation downstairs. We multiplied it out around the complex. The man was making $700 grand. It's like, I don't need to make 700. I just need to make, 350. I can make 100, right? And it wouldn't matter because it's done. So we did that, and we didn't know how though, right? Go back to my upbringing, right? My parents. My dad was enlisted, man. My mom stayed at home with me. Like, we didn't have lawyers and attorneys and property owners coming over to the house and talking about their holdings. We weren't going around picking up rent checks. So I had no idea how you did it or what you did. But at this point, I had some cash in the bank. I had some net worth. I had some liquidity. I had a credit score. I was like, okay, maybe the banks want to lend to me. And so, I'm start looking for deals, and I get there and I take one to the bank. I'm like, hey, I got this amazing opportunity. I need $1.2 million to go ahead and do this. And they look at me and like, what? I was like, oh, I need $1.2 million to go buy this building. I mean, that's what you do, right? You just go to the bank to get the money. It's like, have you done this before? I was like, no, but I just built a $20 million division for a Fortune 550. I just made 30% profit margins 2 years in a row. Like, I know how to run a business. It was my P&L. You're like, yeah, but have you done this? It's like, no, I'm a licensed engineer. I got an MBA. I started giving them all the certifications for corporate America, right? Because that's what matters, right? That's what you need, certification. It's like, no. Go get an experienced partner. I was like, I don't know anybody that does this. What do you mean I need an experienced partner? I got money in the bank. I got an 800 credit score, and I just did this thing in business. He's like, but you haven't performed on this business plan of a property of this size. And I was crushed because it wasn't just one bank. I went to 10 banks and went through the same thing over and over again. Right. So I had to start fixing and flipping because I wasn't going to be able to buy that first apartment building. And I was sitting on the stoop of one of the most ambitious projects I had. And the guy pulled up. He was like, hey, man, let me check out your finishes. We're getting ready to do one of these down the street. Oh, come on in, man. Proud, show him off my flip. And he starts talking. He's like, hey, I'm getting ready. You know anything about that building? Like, what building? That 23 unit down there by the Chimbo Mart. It's like, yeah, I tried to buy that 4 or 5 months ago. He said, I'm getting ready to make an offer on it. I was like, you're the guy I've been looking for, right? You're the guy. I need an experienced partner. He just bought one, so he already had one in the bank, and I need you, right? And he said, what are you going to bring to the table? I said, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Just don't leave me out. He said, no, like, how much money are you going to bring? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Just bring me in on the deal. And sure enough, he went and made the offer without me, right? He didn't need me. I couldn't tell him what I could do for him in order for him to need me to partner. And that's the biggest thing. Like, if somebody doesn't need you in a partnership, they're not going to partner with you. There is no charity, right? They're going to partner with you because you bring some value to the table, or you've come into some arrangement with them that makes it such that that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So he went and made the offer. It didn't get accepted. He went and talked to a guy that I used to lend money to and was like, yo, I need you to come into this deal with me and be the GC, because he had his general contractor's license. He didn't know I had my contractor's license too, because now since I'm a flipper, I need my contractor's license, right? Anyway, certifications don't matter, by the way. So we get in. He's like, oh, Jerome brought me that deal 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. I'm only doing it if he does it. And so that's how I get the deal, right? So it's the 3 of us, then 2 other guys join in. So we buy this 23 unit for 1.27 or something like that. It's a disaster. We pour a ton of money in, and I'm glad the bank didn't make that loan, because I'd be bankrupt. If the bank had to loan that money to me to go do that project by myself, I would have ran out of cash, because I underestimated the rehab budget, and the amount that it was underestimated would have wiped out everything that I had in savings. I probably would have ran the project a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it would have crushed me.
Oh man,
I'm trying not to say too much. This is crazy. That was a great story. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say a lot.
Yes, I know. I think we both want to say a lot.
There's so much I want to comment on. Man, yeah. This is I love the way the story is unfolding. By the way, you're a really good storyteller. You really you have that skill. That's just a side note. But I did want to, just from the beginning too, because you have kind of mentioned how like engineers be counting money, and y'all went back to the sophomore year. You looked at how many people was actually living in that, and I swear I literally did the same thing. I did it by myself because I didn't really had nobody at that time that was kind of like thinking like that, but I did the same thing, and it was like I lived in like a the student housing place, right? I'm paying $500, and I had 3 roommates paying $500, so we each it's $2,000 just in one apartment. I'm like, hold up, it's like 20 buildings here. They running on probably 7 figures every year just on this place, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. And there's a side I really want to come on that. But then, kind of just transitioning into it, like I love the the way you kind of approach the bank too, and kind of trying to tell. Well, it's funny because you went to them and telling them like, yo, I got all these credentials. I should be able to get this money. And meanwhile, these are all, W-2 credentials. They're not necessarily, the credentials that, when we look at the cash flow quadrant, you got to have different credentials in each quadrant, right? they don't necessarily qualify each other in different quadrants. So, but you still getting told no by the bank, that didn't stop you though. And that's what I really loved about this whole thing is what I notice is that the most people that become successful, it's because everybody has those roadblocks. Everybody gets told no, but the people that actually become successful are the people that determine, okay, why did they tell me no? What should I do now? And that's when you started working backwards, right? And you said, okay, I can't buy this apartment complex right now as is. I mean, they told me I can't do it, so I could just go flip and start creating that equity, right? And then at the end of the day, you kind of see that it worked out for the better. The fact that that they didn't lend you that money could have been disastrous. So that's really commendable. I could say more, but I don't want to I want Marlon to comment too. I don't want to hog it.
It's plenty of stuff to unpack in that whole story. One thing I thought about when you first started talking was how you saw that there was literally no control when it came to your W-2 job. Like you literally you built a team of 175 people, and they said cut half of them. Just like with a snap of a finger, like half of people could be gone. You could be in that half. Is what I was thinking. I'm like, bro, like. You are dispensable, just like everybody else that they were trying to cut, and that's what people need to start realizing about their W-2 jobs. Like this is not guaranteed. Like people always preach a safe and secure job, but at the end of the day, you are just a number, bro, and that number can be replaced. Like it doesn't matter about Marlon Walls, Jerome Myers, Alex Munoz. That name does not matter. Just that little spot needs to be filled. That name is replaceable at a heartbeat. And I think a lot of people saw that this year, especially with like the virus. Like people, like you can be cut off in an instant. So that control factor you have zero control when it comes to that. So I commend you first of all just by taking that leap and saying I'm going to go do something where I can control and be the producer, where I'm going to be the one that has to say on whether I make money or not. So yeah, like Alex was mentioning though, the way you went to the bank was hilarious though, because you said, "Hey, bro, listen, I got an 800 credit score. I got I just built 20 million portfolio over here with my job. Like I got it, bro. What you talking about?"
Look,
it's hilarious.
I didn't even put this in. I haven't said this anywhere, man. The guy wrote me back on the email. He's like, "Jerome, we got your 55-page business plan, and we think it's great, but you don't have the experience to execute it." I was like, gosh.
Man.
Laid it out for you.
That's crazy, bro. But that's what it's all about, though, because I told Alex this like a few episodes ago. It's probably, I don't even know what episode it was. It's like when you start starting a business or when you're trying to get into investing, they don't care nothing about your GPA, your resume. They ain't worried about none of that. Like you don't have to bring in your MBA in order to go get a loan for a house. Like that's not what they're looking for. And they look, especially when you're talking about apartments, they're looking for experience. Have you done this? Or this is a whole different quadrant than what you're talking about on that resume. So we're not going to listen to somebody who is ignorant in this particular space, because we've seen what happens, and I guess you were able to see firsthand what happens to people when they go in with lower experience in that regard. But just want to start moving the story forward now. Like, so you did your flip deals and you did this deal. So I'm guessing that you were pretty discouraged because you were losing a lot of money on this deal. So what kept you pushing forward, and what's your next deal look like moving forward from there?
Yeah, I wasn't really discouraged, man. I just felt like it was part of the process. And I didn't even, on the hindsight, it's like, oh, that didn't work the way it was supposed to. But going through the process, it's like, oh, well, it's just a roadblock. We're going to shake and move and go to the next thing, or pivot until you actually get to the place where you can make that shot. And so, just to put things in perspective, so we took that thing down. We redid the roofs, the siding, landscaping, parking lots, took walls out because these are townhome units. Redid all the tile, redid all the flooring, painted the walls, added granite, jackhammered the floor so we could add a half bath on the first floor, added a laundry room. Like we changed the whole project. And when we took that property over, rents were like $695. You guys understand cap rate, so you're gonna appreciate this. Mm-hmm. Today we rent that same property for $11.95 a unit. So, the struggle is worth it as long as you can get to the back end, right? And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And that's the thing with flips, right? Like once you get into the flip, it doesn't matter what comes up. You just got to keep going through the flip to get to the exit. And same thing with the apartments. You got to keep going through to get to the exit. So once you're in, if anything pops up that you didn't understand, then you can get hammered. And a perfect example that I like to use, and I'll just throw it out there for your listeners, is if you're doing a flip and you underestimate your AC budget by $2,000, it's $2,000. That's probably covered in your contingency.
Yeah.
You underestimate an AC unit on a 23 or 25 unit apartment building by $2,000. That's $500,000.
Yeah. Now, I want to comment on that before you continue on. That's why we do talk about like starting off small when it comes to, if you had never did real estate in your life and have no experience with it, it is good to start small with those flip renovations or just single family, a couple, maybe a small multifamily, because your mistakes would be magnified if you get into a 23 unit, a 50 unit, and this is your first or second real estate deal. Like if you have no experience, and that is a good reason to at least start off small, unless you are partnering with somebody who really knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And so what you'll see, though, is a lot of the educators in the space will say, go big or go home, right? Go buy a 100-unit building. But if you haven't had the business experience or you haven't had the investing experience, you can't get here from there, if that makes sense, right? Because you don't actually have the requisite experience to be successful in the space. And being smart is only half the battle. Yeah. You need connections to resources. You need to be able to make phone calls and make problems go away. If something comes up and you have to write that check for that $500,000 because you underestimated it, the bank's not going to give it to you by the way. You got to have that network so that you can make that problem go away, or you lose the whole project. So, I don't want people to just try to eat the whole elephant from the beginning. Like I call it getting tuna in a boat. Go do that smaller deal. Go do a 10 unit. Go do a 12 unit. Get the experience, and then step up to the next one, and then double up and keep doubling on each deal, or do deals of the same size until you can find the right one to make that big leap. But, people just want to go in, oh yeah, you got to go buy the 7 series before you buy the 3 series. No, like it's okay to have a 3 series.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I want to comment on that too, because like I had mentioned before, we are trying to buy our first apartment complex next year, right? And I think one thing that a lot of people because a lot of people will see that and realize, oh man, they just are just going straight into that. But like, no, it's a lot of people don't think about positioning when they're getting started in business. Like positioning is a really big thing that a lot of people don't think about, because a lot of people, what happens is they'll try to be making move number 13 at step number 5. So, there's a whole bunch of other stuff like you talked about. Just it's, the deal itself is just a small part of the actual thing. There's so many other things that come before that in regards to the networking, in regards to the other soft skills and the intangibles that you need to be able to have to get the deal done or to be able to solve problems. You don't necessarily have the capacity to solve those problems if you should be working on move number 2 while you're at move, or you're trying to do move number 13. So that's really key. And that just goes to everything too. Even like, we don't even have to be talking real estate. That's just life in general, or even just on a smaller scale too. It's just, you have to know what you should be doing at this moment. And that's why I always tell people you need to be working backwards so that you can get to the smallest thing that you could be doing now today, and the one that keeps you accountable and always keeps you taking action on what you should be doing to move forward. And also make sure you're not skipping any steps too. You're going to be able to account for everything that you need to be doing. You'll be able to make sure you're going to networking events and, reading the right books and talking to the right people and those things. So I think that's a really key. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I had just another question, because so for us, I know this probably for our personal benefit, honestly, because when you're looking at single families versus multifamilies, it's going to be a process about getting into the deal in general. And there's a few different factors I wanted to get into, but the first one, I'm just thinking, in your case, you talking about how you had a whole bunch of different renovations that came up that were just extra costs that were coming onto you. And so, like, when you are getting into a single family house, you would have like an inspection where you have an inspector walk the property and tell you anything that you may want to ask the seller for before you get into a bad deal. Is there a similar process for multifamily? Like, was there any way to mitigate what you had went through in this first deal in that 23 unit?
Yeah, I mean, we had an inspection. They went through everything. We saw the report. We had the report. It's just a matter of executing against it. And I mean, there's a few things that change. Like, it's a different level of drawings that you have to do when you're going in and doing a project like that, right? So we didn't actually go through and get the drawings we needed beforehand and make sure that our permits were situated the way that they should be situated coming into the deal. And so had we done those things, I think we would have been better off. The other thing that we didn't do that I think was super important is we ignored the building was settling. So we had a building where one of the corners was settling because there were some issues with the rainwater not being moved away from the foundation properly. And it settled so much that it snapped the waste pipe. And so when we were walking through the units, we saw that like sewage, well, today I know that it was sewage was backing up and then spilling over and ruining the cabinets. The faces were eaten up. And we thought, oh yeah, it's just water, it's nasty. We're just gonna rip those out, no big deal. But when we really got into it and started adding in the piping for that new bathroom on the first floor that we put in, we realized that, oh, the whole sewer line was separated. And the reason why the sewage was backing up was because the sewer line wasn't tight. And, that was 30 grand by itself. You know what I mean? So if you're not prepared for that type of stuff, we just ignored the signs. There were signs for everything that showed up. We just didn't do it. We had some people come in and steal the HVAC units because we took the property all the way to 0% occupancy. And so we had some people come in and steal the old HVAC units. And they literally, like, they had the cages on them. So they took it apart in the cages piece by piece and then took out the copper. But since it was vacant, there was nobody to report that. You do that in the park. And so, we learned a ton, man, at the end of the day. And then you just take that and roll it on. But yeah, I mean, absolutely get third-party inspection. And then you use that inspection to negotiate with the seller of the property.
Yeah. And so in regards to like kind of, there was something I wanted to ask, but I forgot. In regards to like where you're at now. So from that deal, obviously you learned a lot. That was a 23 unit. I don't think you mentioned it. That one was in January of 2019, right?
No, that was in November of 2017.
Oh, that was the very first one. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. But I'm sure you learned a lot from that one. So what does your portfolio kind of look like now for the listeners so that they can kind of...
Yeah, so we've done a 26, a 23, a 20, a 10, and an 8. And then we've got a 5 unit, like 2 single family homes and a duplex too.
Nice. And so this is through your, you own a real estate just acquisitions company, and that's the Myers method brand and all of that, correct?
Yeah, so the Myers Development Group is where we buy all of our property, right? And then Myers Methods, we decided that we would package up how we do it and offer it to the people as an education and coaching company.
Okay, got you. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I think, did you want to comment on that, Marlon? Because I was about to...
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So as far as like, after that first deal, the 23 unit, right? So I mean, one theme that I got from that too is kind of y'all were like probably very eager just to kind of even get into that deal. So that's probably, a big reason why, you say you ignored a lot of stuff, stuff that you probably could have, at least either negotiated or even just walked away from the deal altogether. But I'm sure like that whole eagerness played a part. But as far as, because I know you said that was like a partnership and you do like JV and stuff. Is that primarily how you've been financing a lot of your deals now, just in terms of like JVs? Or because I know we were talking before, you say you don't syndicate. So,
and tell what JV is for the listeners too, before you even get into it too much.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things to explain. So yes, we're the joint venture group, and we're probably the only education group that talks about it, right? So I hope the majority of your listeners have been on a plane at some point or another, right? So you got your ticket in your hand, you walk up to the lady at the counter. It could be a guy. She scans it, right? You get on the jet bridge, you walk over to the plane, you wave at the steward and stewardess, you look at the pilots, make sure they're not drunk. Then you go sit in your seat, right? That's the syndication, right? You don't have a say. You paid to get on the plane. Basically, every dollar you put in, you don't get $1 of equity for every dollar you put in a syndication situation. You get some fraction of that. It's an 80-20, 70-30, 75-25, whatever the splits are. That holdback, that 80, that 20%, that 25, or that 30% goes to the people that are working on the syndication, or the people who are flying the plane, right? So the pilot, the stewardess, the people who put the food on there, all of those folks are getting paid to be on the plane with you. And everybody's going together, but some people are paying to be on the plane. Others are getting paid to be on the plane, right? So that's syndication. Joint ventures is like a fighter pilot. And, I told you guys my dad was a soldier, right? We used to have planes flying over our house all the time. And so I wanted to be a fighter jet pilot in addition to being a trashman. So I don't know how it's going to work that out, but I wanted to do both, right? So for me today, like, I'm a fighter jet pilot. Everybody that is in my joint venture has an active role. They're responsible for some piece of the project. Could be helping with due diligence. It could be the operations with the property manager. It could be solving a problem with whatever, finding vendors, whatever it is. And we do that so that the people who sign the loan have that experience piece. And I guess I never really landed that plane for you guys, right? So you don't have experience from the bank's perspective until you signed a loan. And so for the people who are getting told, hey, invest in this deal so you can get experience investing in apartments, well, that's great that you put your money in the deal, but the bank still doesn't see that as experience. Mm-hmm. They don't see it as experience until you sign a loan. So we did that first one to sign a loan. And part of the reason why we do joint ventures is because we want people, at least one new person, to be able to sign their own loan going forward. And then they get the opportunity to stay with us if they enjoy the operations. But if they want to go build their own thing, we open the door. Your listeners will be familiar with fraternities or sororities, right? And so you don't get in a fraternity or sorority unless somebody brings you in. Multifamily investing is very, very similar, right? Somebody has to bring you in with that experience in order for you to get in the game. And I'm actually going through that right now because we're doing 120 unit development, and my partner on the deal has done a number of different HUD programs where, you're getting these crazy loans where they amortize for 40 years, interest rates are under 3%, and it's non-recourse for the construction of that property for, the entire time that you have it. Like, that is a totally different ball game than going to get the recourse debt from the community bank. And so, but the only way that you can do one of those is if you have somebody on the team who's done one before. And so he's opening the door for me and bringing me in the game so that now if I want to go do that on my own, I can. Doesn't mean that I have to, but I can because I've got the experience now.
Mm-hmm. I really like that analogy too, the way you laid that out and explained that, because the way I think of it too, in terms of like a JV is essentially like a partnership, right? A syndication is just, you're just putting up money and you're essentially buying income whenever you're involved in a syndication as one of the limited partners. But with the partnership, I love the partnership even in small scale real estate, right? I love that as a way for people to get started, because what happens essentially is you're covering someone else's shortcomings and they're covering your shortcomings in a way, right? Because there's always something that you can provide and there's always something that someone else can provide, right? And I tell people this all the time. Say, hey, I don't have money to get started in real estate. Well, everybody has. If you don't have money, then you should either have hustle and you should have time, right? And when you have that, if you have that, you should have the knowledge, right? So you can partner with someone that doesn't necessarily have the time or the hustle to be able to be involved in real estate, but they have the money. So you cover each other's shortcomings and you provide value in that way. And that's a great way. And even, looking at it on this large scale JV, I hadn't even been thinking of it like that. And I'm going to have to definitely start considering that more, because the syndication route is, of course, we start looking at the SEC regulation and all that stuff. It's a whole different ballgame. But just in regards to like the financing and, being able to leverage other people, I think that could be a lot more, especially for the first deal. I think that could be a great way to get actually involved and get started. Marlon, what were you about to say? Or did you want to comment, Jerome?
Yeah, I comment too, but I like how you laid out the JV, like that entire process, because that really allows, like, it's synonymous with ownership in a way. Like, everybody is going to be like part owner to this deal, this property, and everybody's going to gain the experience that's going to be in favor for the banks later on when they're trying to do their own thing. So everybody is like everybody's bringing something to the table, like adding some type of value. So whether you're a contracting company, whether you are the GC, whether you are the I don't know, everybody is bringing their own thing to the table, and that everybody's gaining that experience at the same time. I really like how you laid that out. And moving forward, also say that like when you're talking about getting into deals, I know a lot of people like to like go into deals by themselves and not really like have anybody along with them. Like everybody, some people have like a selfish mentality when it comes to like to making money, and they are always looking for a way to get in without anybody else around them. And I think this is like a great perspective that you're providing, because in some instances you can't get into the door unless somebody else opens the door for you. So it's all about understanding that people are out here that'll open doors for you that you otherwise wouldn't be able to open up yourself. So now, with that being said, how do y'all split the gains? Like when it comes to or split who's making what? Because when you get into a joint venture, I'm sure there's gonna be documents that describe who gets what percent of the profit. How does that work out?
Yeah, so that's going to be captured in your operating agreement. And the great thing about real estate is everything's negotiable, right? We reward people who find the deal. And it doesn't mean you went on LoopNet and brought something back that was being mass marketed by a broker. You get rewarded for finding the deal. You get rewarded for signing the loan. We give equity for that. And then everything else is pretty much how much equity are you bringing to the table. And that equity equates to a percentage of ownership. And that's how we break it out. We think that that's fair. And it digs into the hustle piece that you're talking about. And, we characterize it this way, though. Every investor is trying to overcome 4 challenges: knowledge, deal flow, experience, and capital. And it's in that order, right? People talk about, I can't invest because I don't have any money. Well, it doesn't matter if you don't have any money, because if you don't have any experience, the bank's not going to lend to you anyway if you're trying to do bank debt, right? If you don't have any experience, or if you don't have experience and you don't have any deal flow, your experience doesn't matter because you don't have a deal to apply the experience against. And if you don't have any deal flow, but you don't have any knowledge, you can't tell the difference between a lead and a deal anyway. So you're already stuck in the water, right? So I tell people, get knowledge, get educated, and it's not just listening to a podcast. And this is my favorite example. I love stories, man. They'll know this podcast is going long. We might have to do a part 2, guys. But look, all right, I am going to start my MMA career, right? Conor McGregor is going to be my first fight. I need you guys to give me $500,000 between the two of you. When I win, you're going to get a 15% return on that money, right? If I lose, you get nothing. Now you looking at me, man. I'm bigger than Conor. Like I can do it. I'm big. All I've done is read books, watch YouTube videos, and listen.
I like it, bro.
I can send you wire instructions whenever you're ready.
Go get some experience.
Exactly. The coach, right? Get something from somebody who's walked that path, and that's the point, right? Like, it sounds ridiculous that I'm gonna go get in the ring and find Conor McGregor. But I can tell you that these apartment buildings and a lot of this other money that people want to put into these, it's not buying a widget, right? You are buying a wild animal that you have to tame in order to create increase in net operating income so that you force the appreciation of that property.
Right.
You increase that value. This, again, it is not buying widgets. This isn't buy low and sell high. You're buying low, improving the operations, and then you can sell high. And this is why I put that experience in between the deal flow and the capital. Capital chases experience, including the bank. Smart capital is always going to chase experience. Experience chases deals. Knowledge chases deals. The deal is what everybody's chasing, but you've got to be educated, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to be educated, right? And so you can do that. You can get really valuable to the marketplace by having deals, and then you can partner with people who have experience and can usually link you with capital because you've got that deal. But you can't skip that experience part, and everybody wants to tell you that you can. Money doesn't find deals. Money finds experience. Experience finds deals.
I love that, man. It's just it goes back to the positioning too, because it's like you can't be trying to be doing, because everyone always thinks that the capital is the biggest thing, like that's the biggest hurdle. But you got all these other things that you still haven't even, like let's say you even get the capital. Okay, you got the money. Go get a deal now. Go make it work. I promise you're not going to come back with a good deal. I promise I promise what you're going to buy is going to be a bad. It's like, I mean, it's the same. It's a perfect analogy. It's like we see the lottery winners, you see the pro athletes, they get the money, and they don't know what to do with it. So it's squandered, it's blown, it's all gone because they don't have they're on step 13 and don't have step 5. They don't have those previous things that was supposed to be that came up. Like when you become wealthy, like slowly, you start broke and you accumulate all the skills and things that are necessary to be able to manage and handle that money. And it's really the similar situation here in regards to the being able to get into these larger assets. I love that point too, especially talking about how you're not buying like even as it reminds me too of like when I tried to get into the trucking game too. A similar exact same thing happened to me. I got rejected by 10 to 15 banks before I finally got told yes. I literally went on one Friday, I went to 10 banks and got told no by 10 straight banks, literally in one day, in one afternoon. And it's essentially, it's not like me, in the same way me buying a apartment complex is not like me going by a primary residence house. The same way me buying a semi truck is not the same thing as me buying my Mazda, right? So it's a completely different game. You're buying a business. It's the vehicle that you're using, but it's a business that you're buying. You're not buying something that's like built for, leisure or, something for just people to use. So it's a completely different mindset. And I really love the way you explain that and approach that.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't say you were going to send them money though.
Man,
y'all not going to support me?
I'm gonna have to pass on this one, bro.
Come back with that coach and that experience, we may reconsider. Hey, no, but that was just a very good lesson. I love the 4 steps you were talking about, though, because that really breaks it down and shows people what they really should be going after when it comes to trying to get into something that's new, that's not in the realm of what they've already been doing. If you're trying to get into a real estate deal for the first time, whether it's a single family, whether it's a multifamily, you have to go through those 4 steps. Like, you need to understand that education is key. After education, you need to know what a good deal looks like, because education is going to teach you what that deal looks like. And then once you know what the deal looks like, you need to start getting that experience by getting into the deals that you are allowed to get into, or that people will give you that experience in order to get into the bigger deals. Like just the route that you took with the flipping, you're more likely to get that loan for that single family resident rental property or flip deal as opposed to getting that 23 unit. So it's just about taking those steps and like Alex said, working backwards. And then once you have that, the money's going to be looking for you if you have success with the experience that you've had. So I think we've learned that ourselves very much so with just doing a podcast, with doing more deals and sharing our story. I think by us building that experience and that credibility, money is looking for us now. And that's really what it's all about, is just those 4 steps that you listed. So yeah, definitely I like that lesson very much. So I don't know, Alex, I don't know if you had any other questions that you want to ask.
I wanted to kind of move forward into kind of just, because I know we probably about an hour now, but I wanted to move forward into just in regards to like, what you're doing now, how you're trying to like continue to progress and where you're going, and and how like, what's the end goal? What does all that look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know that we have an end goal, but I think at the highest level, we're pursuing a portfolio of 1,000 doors here in Greensboro by 2028, right? And the goal there is just to be the market maker and just be a true influencer and own this marketplace. In addition to that, I think it's teaching people how to get into the space, right? And so we've packaged up our approach so that people can do the stuff more efficiently than I did. The most expensive mistake that I made along the way, we talked about what happened with the 23. Most expensive mistake I made along the way was not getting any curated content, right? I listened to 40 hours of podcasts a week, and I did that for years on end, trying to make sure that like, boom, I was getting everything. I wasn't going to get blindsided. And what I figured out the hard way was, one, everybody who wanted a podcast didn't talk about the challenges. Everybody made money, and everything went exactly as it went to plan. And I just want your listeners to know that's not a real thing, right? And so we started a podcast called Multifamily Missteps, where I bring operators on from around the country and they share their war stories, just so people know what can go wrong. We're not competing. I'm not competing with you guys. You guys aren't competing with me. There may be a very small window when we do, where there's a deal on market and you want to pay this and I want to pay that. And at the end of the day, whoever can pay more wins that deal. But outside of that, we should be working together, elevating the collective knowledge of the community so that we become better operators overall, right? And so that's what multifamily missteps is about. We got a podcast called Dreamcatchers. I think a lot of people are trying to exit the matrix. They want to get out, right? They want to be free. And so we tell the stories of people who've exited the matrix. You get the tools, tactics, and techniques that they use to get out and what they're doing to be successful today. And so we've got those two resources. If your listeners are interested in multifamily investing, if they jump over to myersmethods.com, they can get a free 4-step guide that breaks down what you can bring to a deal if you don't have a ton of money or you don't have a ton of experience, so that they can figure out how to get in the space and get moving. Because at the end of the day, I want more people to grow wealth. And I'm not telling you you're going to get rich overnight. What I'm telling you is to go deep sea fishing. And I'll use this as my last example. There's a lot of people out there who will say, just go big or go home, go do this 100-unit deal and make $10 million and it'll all be good. And it'll be worth spending 25 or 50 with me so that you can get the education you need. No, I want you to go get some tuna in a boat. Stop hunting Moby Dick, right? You're trying to hit a grand slam. I want you to get a base hit, right? So go deep sea fishing, throw it out there, find out if you like fighting that tuna, get the tuna in a boat, come back in, let everybody see what you caught, right? Because that's what they're all waiting. They're waiting for you to come back to shore to see if you caught anything. Then go back out, this time with a bigger boat. Now maybe you get some swordfish, you get some marlin, you get some bigger fish. You bring those fish back. You show them that you got those fish. Now if you want to go hunt a well, guess what? All those people that are there, they might be willing to get in a boat with you so you can go get that well. But if you didn't go get the tuna or you go get the marlin on those previous trips, you don't have a track record to point to. So it's no different than me going to fight Conor on my first MMA fight. Right? It's just not realistic, right? And I want people to understand, and it's an extreme example, but I truly want people to understand what they're asking folks to do, right? The bank in particular doesn't bet on dreams. They don't invest in dreams. They invest in proven business plans with multiple exit strategies for them to make sure that they stay whole. And a smart investor is going to do the same thing. And so when you go to talk to somebody who's wealthy, they're wealthy because they're prudent in their approach. They're not taking crazy bets. And you've got to position yourself. I like your positioning, right? You got to position yourself as somebody who's well educated and ready to go ahead and be a great steward of the capital that's placed in your care. Yeah. Right? And for me, that's the foundation. Like, I'm not going to lose your money. And I need you to know that before. I might not make you any money, but I'm not going to lose. Preservation capital is rule number one.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, man. I love that. It's because a lot of people say that they want to raise private capital and do all those things in order to like fund deals and stuff. I'm like, look, you have to be so confident that you, especially on your first deal, you have to be so confident that you know you're not going to lose these people's money, that you would be, number one, willing to put your own money in the deal. And number two, if you did lose their money, you're going to empty your savings to make sure that they get paid back. So that's like the biggest thing. I would lose all of my savings before I lose a dollar or anybody else's money. Because that's my name. And your name is going to be way more, valuable than what those dollars that you make could be. So I love it. So we could kind of wrap up now. We want to do the Fast Five. This is typically where we ask you 5 questions and you answer them in 10 seconds or less. And we'll kind of get into that and wrap up the show. So I think I'm going to actually do 6 though, because there was another one that I did want to ask. I'm going to do 6. We'll do that one towards the end. So I'll take the first one and Marlon will take the next one. We'll alternate. So first question, what does success mean to you?
Significance.
All right, question number 2. What's your favorite money or business book?
Millionaire Success Habits has been probably the most foundational book for me, just because I'm good at doing a bunch of stuff, and so I'm a do everything, but I don't need to. I need to allow other people to express your genius on the things that we're working on.
And who's that by?
Dean Graziosi.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Third question, would you rather have $1,000 a week for life or $1 million today, and why?
$1 million. I can turn that million into 10.
Yeah. Easy.
Yes, sir. All right, question number 4. If you could go back and change anything about your journey, what would it be?
I would have started multifamily sooner.
You would have started it sooner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wasted so much time. I wanted to go into multifamily when I was a sophomore in college. I went and had a whole career on the backside of that. I wasted over a decade, almost 2.
Wow.
I knew what I wanted to do. I just wasn't doing it. I should have got really laser focused, find out who owned that building, and then went and knocked on the door and say, I work for you, on a Wolf of Wall Street moment where the guy says, you show me a check for $70,000, I work for you. I should have did that right then, and I didn't.
So then this is the extra question I want to ask. So, of course, you know, we have a platform and we have people listening. What is something that is, you know, you might need in your business or something that you're looking for that someone that could be listening could provide for you? Me included.
I think the real value for me right now is I'm just standing up the media company. We're putting out a ton of content, and I live on LinkedIn more so than Instagram. We're putting together a ton of content, and I just want, like, if you type my name in your favorite podcasting app, I'm tied to almost 200 podcast episodes, right? And so, but I'm not doing anything to push that to social. I'm not doing anything to push that to websites or my email list or any of that stuff. And so now we're building out the media company so that we can help educate other people. And so for me, I think that piece is huge. And I say that, and I don't have a specific ask there, but what I partner or pair that with is, you know, spreading the word, right? We don't think about word of mouth, but it's huge. Like, if somebody hears this and it touches them, go tell at least 3 people. Because for me, it's about helping as many people as I possibly can. My success is exposing people to this asset class and showing them an actual path that they can use to get into it, instead of being sold snake oil or say, invest in my fund because we're going to buy back the block and all this other stuff and then not actually do it, right? Like, I want people to actually win, and not everybody's out for that. They want you to win after they win. No, I want you to win.
All right, to the last question, I think you kind of answered it on the previous one, but where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, man. So at the highest level for what this is, I mean, there's 2 websites. I'll give you both, but I really want to push the MyersMethods.com because I think that's where people are going to find out the most about multifamily. That was the majority of our conversation. I've got one at a higher level called JeromeMyers.co. And on that one, you can find out everything that we've got going on. We've got a couple of books out. We've got 2 live events. And then we've got our different operating companies so people can see what we have going on. But MyersMethods.co, I think, is the best way. And then connect with me on LinkedIn, man. I'm trying to give people jewels every day there. And I just love growing the following. We're going to 10,000 this year. So it's going to be amazing.
Well, yeah, this was a super dope episode. I appreciate you, man, just coming on here and sharing your story. Like I said, you're a great storyteller. And, you know, this story was very powerful, just the way it unfolded in terms of, you know, how you got your start and what you're doing now. So I appreciated you. I appreciate it. And, you know, continue to, you know, do what you're doing and spread the word.
For sure.
Appreciate
having you, man. All right.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us 5 stars and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find out more info about us on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll be sure to keep you engaged. So check that out and share those posts. But until then, we're out of here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.